Due to the storm, the modern supercarrier accidentally ended up in 1941, in the midst of World War II. The movie unfolds in 1980 at the Pearl Harbor Naval Base in the United States. Warren Lasky, a systems analyst for Tideman Industries, serves as an efficiency expert for the U.S. Department of Defense. At the request of his boss, Mr. Tideman, he is dispatched to the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier, engaged in exercises in the Pacific Ocean. Lasky is informed that Mr. Tideman wishes to bid him farewell, but the enigmatic figure never exits his car. Upon arrival on the ship, Lasky encounters Captain Matthew Yelland and other crew members. Yelland, clearly apprehensive about having an outsider on board, reluctantly extends an invitation to Lasky for dinner. Assigned by a corporal to the navigator's cabin adjacent to the captain's quarters, Lasky explores and stumbles upon a manuscript about World War II on the table. His investigation is interrupted as Commander Dick Owens, the cabin's owner and author, enters. Owens expresses displeasure at Lasky's intrusion and requests him not to repeat it. Meanwhile, the military detects an unexpected storm approaching. Despite earlier forecasts of clear weather, radio contact between the aircraft carrier and its fighters and command is lost due to interference. Meteorological officer Black Cloud alerts Captain Yelland that the water temperature has plummeted by 5 degrees, with pressure rising instead of decreasing. Additionally, clouds form and dissipate erratically, leaving Black Cloud bewildered by the phenomenon. The captain urgently orders a rookie pilot to land, but a mysterious vortex approaches the Nimitz at that moment. The ship navigates through a peculiar electromagnetic storm that bewilders the crew. The storm ends as abruptly as it began. The military regains composure, after which Captain Yelland declares a state of emergency. All crew members take their positions and successfully land the rookie pilot who lost control of the fighter jet. However, soon the military notices that their radars and other equipment have malfunctioned, causing them to lose radio communication with command in Pearl Harbor. Yelland orders Owens to send helicopters and reconnaissance planes to the base, then gathers the commanders of all units, suspecting that the strangeness could be due to a nuclear strike. Suddenly, they manage to pick up a radio broadcast from the 1940s, confusing the military. Shortly thereafter, a ship is spotted near the Nimitz, and the captain also sends planes to investigate. We are transported back to 1941. Senator Samuel Chapman is taking a yacht cruise, listening to a radio broadcast and discussing politics with his friend Arthur. Also on board are the senator's secretary, Laurel Scott, and her dog, Charlie. Soon, the excited dog rushes onto the deck and barks, looking at the sky, as 2 F-14 fighters fly overhead. The pilots report to the captain that they have spotted an old, well-preserved yacht flying the U.S. flag. Yelland orders them to continue observation and sends refueling aircraft to them. Meanwhile, on the Nimitz, the crew listens to the only available radio broadcast, airing a 40-year-old boxing match. Lasky speculates that everything happening could be part of a secret naval maneuver, but Yelland is certain it's impossible. However, Commander Dan Thurman believes that Lasky was sent to them for a reason. He thinks the Department of Defense wants to show Lasky something, and Yelland agrees with this theory, but the expert swears he knows nothing and understands nothing. Then the shocked military personnel hear news on the radio about battles near Moscow. What the hell's going on there? Yelland receives aerial reconnaissance photos of Pearl Harbor and is astounded. One of the images shows the battleship Arizona, still intact despite its destruction by the Japanese and subsequent transformation into a memorial. Convinced that Lasky may be withholding information, Yelland summons him, demanding the complete truth. Despite Yelland's insistence, Lasky maintains his innocence, claiming ignorance. Yelland then presents Lasky with the perplexing recent photos. After deliberation, Lasky proposes comparing them with Owens' archival images for his book. Remarkably, the pictures match identically, despite being taken in 1941 and depicting objects that were destroyed thereafter. Meanwhile, F-14 fighters refuel in midair and detect 2 Japanese Mitsubishi A-6M0 fighters. The American pilots promptly inform the captain, who orders ongoing monitoring of their trajectory. Later, Yelland, alongside the commanders and Lasky, endeavors to unravel the enigma unfolding before them. Somebody, for some reason, wanted to admit that we're back in 1941. Now, who what? Thurman places blame on the Russians for the unfolding events, while Lasky proposes a radical notion: the possibility that they've been inexplicably transported through time. The military dismisses this idea as implausible, but Lasky points to the unprecedented nature of the mysterious storm they encountered. Lasky is convinced that the anomaly stems from the influence of little-understood cosmic forces such as black holes, antimatter, and warped space-time. Captain Yelland finds this explanation peculiar and seeks a more grounded rationale for the events. Meanwhile, enemy fighters approach the senator's yacht. Passengers watch with curiosity until they discern the Japanese flag on the planes. The enemies open fire on the yacht, critically injuring Arthur, a friend of the senator. Stunned F-14 pilots report the attack to the captain. On the Nimitz, Lasky ponders the motive behind the Japanese assault on the yacht. Owens, who appears to entertain the time travel theory, suggests that the Japanese aim to eliminate all radio-equipped objects that could warn Pearl Harbor of impending danger. To test this hypothesis, Yellen tasks Owens with pinpointing the exact location of the Japanese forces in 1941 and dispatches an E-2 reconnaissance plane to investigate. F-14 pilots seek permission to intervene and thwart the Japanese assault on the yacht and its remaining passengers, but the captain prohibits them from interfering. Senator Chapman and his secretary, Laurel, witness the return of the Japanese fighters in horror. Fortunately, they manage to escape with the dog Charlie, while as the Japanese make another attempt to attack the crippled yacht, F-14s observe their advance toward the Nimitz. Captain Yellen grants authorization for a counterattack. In a successful engagement, the pilots shot down 2 enemy planes. They report to the captain that 2 civilians from the yacht and 1 Japanese pilot have survived the skirmish. Meanwhile, the E-2 plane discerns 456 objects on the Japanese fleet's radars, all heading southwest. Alarmed by this discovery, the captain tasks Commander Owens with assembling a rescue team and ensuring the isolation of the survivors. Commander Thurman is directed to oversee the safety of the rescue operations, while the remaining crew members are assigned to monitor the movements of the Japanese soldiers closely. Still think it's a dream? The senator, Laurel, and their dog are hoisted onto the helicopter's deck from the water. Chapman surveys the helicopter with astonishment, curious about the origin of the rescuers. Owens informs him about the Nimitz, and when he realizes that the Senator Chapman is standing before him, he is speechless. Subsequently, the rescue team retrieves the surviving Japanese man before returning to the aircraft carrier. Captain Yellen examines the Japanese man's personal effects and orders the translation of his notebook. Meanwhile, the E-2 continues its vigilance over enemy movements, revealing a substantial Japanese fleet heading towards Pearl Harbor. Yellen convenes Owens, Thurman, and Lasky to determine the next course of action. Thurman advocates for a preemptive strike against the enemy to safeguard Pearl Harbor. However, Yellen hesitates to initiate hostilities, citing the absence of aggression from their side. Lasky posits that their access to advanced technologies not available in 1941 presents extraordinary opportunities to alter history's course. Owens remains skeptical, but Lasky points out their disruption of events by saving individuals who were fated to perish. After deliberation, Captain Yellen resolves to adhere to regulations, prioritizing the prevention of any threat to the USA, irrespective of the temporal context. During the interrogation of the Japanese man, the doctor visits Chapman and Laurel to assess their condition post-incident. Chapman bristles at the implication of an accident, convinced of a deliberate attack on the yacht. Fuming, he demands a meeting with Captain Yellen to address the matter, only to find themselves locked in after the doctor departs. Sensing trouble, Lasky revisits Owens' cabin to scrutinize his manuscripts once more. Soon after, Owens returns to his cabin and discovers the manuscript missing. He confronts Lasky, demanding an explanation. Lasky provocatively insinuates Owens' vested interest in altering history. Reading from the manuscript, Lasky highlights Owens' regret over Chapman's disappearance and theorizes about his potential presidency post-Roosevelt. Owens vehemently denies involvement. Senator Chapman, perplexed, shares his suspicions with Laurel. He questions the origins of the sailors' weaponry and equipment and the naming of their aircraft carrier after the still-living Admiral Nimitz. Owens and Lasky approach the senator, but their interaction is interrupted by the dog bolting out of the cabin. Exploiting the distraction, a Japanese pilot seizes an M16 rifle from a guard and incapacitates 2 others. He then holds Laurel, Owens, and Lasky hostage, making unclear demands they cannot comprehend without a translator. Owens cautiously summons the military translator, Kojima, via phone. Upon understanding the pilot's demands, Kojima explains his need for access to the radio to warn the Japanese fleet about the Nimitz, threatening harm otherwise. Captain Yellen reluctantly agrees, but the pilot, mistrustful, maintains his grip on the hostages. Yellen asserts radio access will only be granted once Laurel is freed, met with skepticism. Lasky proposes revealing the secret plans of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor to Owens. Shocked, the pilot questions how the Americans obtained such information, momentarily lowering his guard, and Owens escorts Laurel to her cabin, assuring her of his commitment to finding her missing dog, Charlie. Their interaction reveals a burgeoning mutual sympathy. Meanwhile, the senator reels from the revelations of the impending attack and demands answers from Yellen. He insists on informing Pearl Harbor Command, to which the captain reluctantly accedes. Attempting to establish communication with the base, Chapman identifies himself aboard the aircraft carrier Nimitz with Captain Yellen. However, his claims are met with skepticism as there is no record of a ship named Nimitz, nor anyone by the name of Yellen. Incensed by the dismissive treatment, Chapman demands immediate transportation to Pearl Harbor along with Laurel. which Yellen hesitates to comply with. Lasky observes that the senator disappeared on this very day in 1941, suggesting it's safer to keep him aboard the Nimitz. Yellen, however, opts for an alternative plan, directing Owens to transport the civilians to an isolated Hawaiian island, furnishing them with necessary supplies to prevent interference with their operations. Addressing the entire carrier crew, Yellen clarifies the nature of the events as not a nuclear attack or World War III but a natural phenomenon, a mysterious storm opening a portal to another temporal era. Emphasizing the opportunity to alter the course of events, Yellen rallies the crew to prepare for the impending Japanese fleet attack. The plane lands on the desolate island, where the senator realizes he's been deceived. Seizing a rocket launcher, he coerces the pilots to transport him to Pearl Harbor, leaving Laurel and Owens behind. The pilots acquiesce to the senator's demands and take off, setting the stage for as aircraft from the Nimitz soar into the air to launch a formidable strike against the enemy fleet. An inexplicable storm materializes once more in the carrier's path. With mere minutes remaining until the attack, Yellen commands the planes to be recalled and the assault aborted. Lasky remains steadfast in his belief that rectifying past errors is imperative, but Yellen deems intervention unwarranted. As the Nimitz navigates the storm, the bombardment of Pearl Harbor commences. Following the tumult, the weather clears, and the planes safely return to the carrier, resuming their routine operations in 1980. Lasky bids farewell to the military and departs with Charlie, the time-traveling dog, by his side. Yellen laments Owens' inability to return to the present from the enigmatic island, wishing Lasky well. Suddenly, Lasky spots the familiar black car that escorted him aboard the aircraft carrier. Charlie breaks free and leaps into the vehicle. Furious, Lasky approaches the car and encounters the mysterious Mr. Taidman and his wife, only to be astonished as he recognizes the older versions of Owens and Laurel. With smiles, they extend an invitation for Lasky to join them, as they have much to discuss. How, in your opinion, did Owens Taidman manage to undertake such a mysterious time travel? And what would you do if you had a chance to change the outcome of an important event? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.